This is a Let's Talk Church Safety and Security microsode with your host, Paul Buckner. Hey, sheepdogs, finishing up a long, hot day. Nice to have the monsoon ending here in the Ozarks. I love it. Coming home with some groceries. Been talking with some of my friends, some of my officers. I've had some folks reach out to me. Alan Hughes wrote a wonderful article about it. So there's a reality right now, and it's kind of hard for some people to understand. But we've had a couple of school shootings in recent time. Go back and read his article. I've actually shared it on the Let's Talk Church Safety and Security page. But I've been thinking about this for a couple of days, and I apologize for not actually doing a lot lately with my podcast and everything. I have been elbow deep in the life of one of my officers and his family, doing a lot of life together. He was jokingly calling me his spiritual FTO the other day, his field training officer, but that's the reality of our walk with Christ. And I really love how God has opened some things up in my life, because I get to serve in church safety and some things very directly in ways that I haven't been able to do in a while. And I've really been able to minister into the lives of some of my guys recently. I actually baptized for the first time in the 13 years or so that I've been doing the chaplain thing. I actually baptized a believer into Christ. A lot of what I do is band-aids and helping find perspective and helping to let off pressure. And this was salvation, and I love it. So the realities of a shooting, yes, there's a less than a 1% chance, quite a bit less than a 1% chance that we're ever going to see severe violence at our church. But when it happens, the way that Colonel Jeff Cooper used to say, you need to be able to look at it and go, oh, I thought this might happen, and not be like, oh my word, oh no, I never thought this would happen. That'll get you hurt. That's panic. You need to be prepared for the fact that you may be the only person there that can counter the threat. You may be prepared for the fact that people, and I've said this a long time ago, but not in the function of my podcast, not in the function of the Let's Talk Church Safety and Security podcast. But you need to be prepared for the fact that people on your team that always thought they were squared away, that always thought they were going to run to the sound of the guns, may stop. As John Correa with Active Self-Protection says it, and I love it, you need to be practicing spiritual fitness. You need to be right with God. Is there a sin between you and God that's unconfessed? That might hang you up. And we've all seen in recent times where people who are tasked with protecting the innocent, and it breaks my heart as a civilian police chaplain, it breaks my heart, where they've not gone in, or they've run away, where they've not done their duty. And you need to be ready to go in alone. You need to be ready for people that you think are going to go in. I have seen people fold in environments, whether it's security, executive protection, church safety, just in personal life, at car accidents, in law enforcement. I have seen people fold that I never would have thought would have folded. And I've seen people step up that I never thought would have. So don't rely on somebody else to be the heavy hitter on your team. That person may not be there that Sunday. Think of the Sutherland Springs shooting where several people who normally carried were not in the church that day. Murphy's Law, if you and I are together and you're like, well, Paul Buckner's got this, I'll be the first to take a round. That's just how that works. I think it was Michael Hawk, who did some of the Man, Woman, Wild, or whatever that show was a long time ago. Interesting fellow. He made a comment once that Murphy's Law was that the most prepared person on the airplane, if you're traveling together, will be the one to die in the crash. And he's not wrong. So we all need to be prepared. Be prepared for the fact that you may have to step over the body. I was watching this show the other day. It was a cop show, and it's fairly woke. I get pretty tired of it. But there was a moment in the show where an officer goes running up during the middle of a mass shooting, and there is still an active shooter loose, an active killer is loose in the building, and he drops to his knees and he's sobbing over the body of a dead child. No relation to him or anything like that. Please don't misunderstand me. It is going to hurt to have to step over the body. It is going to hurt. It may be a loved one. It is going to hurt to know that that person will probably bleed to death. They will sanguinate most likely before you can get back to them. If the active killer is still actively killing on your campus, you have to get the threat neutralized. They need to go into custody, or they need to be eliminated. And that is a horrible reality. That is a horrible reality. I don't care how fast you are on the draw. You probably will not prevent everyone from getting hurt. Talk to Jack Wilson. Talk to Stephen Williford. He's a friend and he's a good dude. Talk to these men. Listen to their stories. I was honored to do an amazing interview both with the church safety guys and on my own podcast, and listen to their story as they talk about the fact that they wish they'd been just a split second faster. If your plan is that you're going to run out to your vehicle at the mall, at your church, at work, and you're going to grab your body armor and you're going to put it on and you're going to run back into the building, I hate to tell you this, you will end up with an unbelievable amount of regret, because you need to be able to go to that right then. I was at an event doing security and there was a credible threat that was coming around to potentially do a drive-by, and I was alarmed. I mean, I literally had to go and sit and process the fact that out of a couple hundred people there was one other guy there that was squared away and had the intestinal fortitude to stand with me against the threat. Who decided he didn't want to get hurt, didn't want to get shot. We met the threat head on, calmly, looking at the threat. The threat decided not to be a threat. I heard things like, oh, I'm not worried about it. My gun's in my truck, a couple hundred yards away. Oh, I'm not worried about it. I've got my gun on me. Oh, wait, it's not chambered. I have to go chamber my gun. You have the rest of your life to get that weapon in the fight. And I'm going to tell you now, this is some tough love. So I want you to remember this. Paul Buckner, the Let's Talk Church Safety and Security podcast guy, loves you. And I need you to love me, and I need you to hear me. You will regret for the rest of your life if you did not have your firearm on you. If you feel called by God, whether by profession or by lifestyle, to be a protector of other human beings, get medical training, learn to use your weapon. If you feel called to carry a weapon, and carry it every day. I literally have been in situations where I've looked at men that should have been armed and weren't, and had to loan them my backup weapon when things were going sideways. No recrimination against them, but be careful, because you will regret the thought, if I'd only had my gun. Think of this shooting down in Texas 30-40 years ago now, where the lady was not allowed to have her gun in a restaurant, and the guy came in, crashed his vehicle into the building, and then walked around systematically shooting people. And she's like, if I'd only had my gun, I could have taken this guy out. I would rather die trying to take somebody out with my gun in hand than not have my gun at all and be one more target for the bullet. Because my personality is I'm going head on with the person one way or the other. So have your weapon on you and have it ready at hand, and have an adequate weapon to the fight. Think of Carl Chen, fantastic guy, the godfather of a lot of church safety. Think about him and the fact that one of his biggest hobby horses, one of the biggest things that he just beats like a drum, is bring enough gun for the fight. Bring reloads. On my body right now, and this is a light carry situation, I have a loaded weapon with one backup mag to the store and back. There might be more magazines in the vehicle, but on a duty carry day, when I'm doing something of an executive protection nature for a ministry, when I'm doing full-on church security, it's one weapon on me, fully loaded magazine, high cap mag, and 2 spare mags minimum. And if I'm going into a very dangerous environment, there's always medical in my vehicle. If I'm doing a ride-along and there's any kind of a threat against an officer, somebody's threatening to kill that officer or whatever, and I'm doing a ride-along, there's a whole lot more stuff than that comes with. So you do not have time to run out to your vehicle. And I've talked to guys that are like, well, I park next to the building, I park next to the church, I can run out this side door, I can open the safe in my vehicle, I can grab my body armor, I can grab whatever, I can grab my rifle and go back in. Well, first off, that side door to your church shouldn't be open. It shouldn't be unlocked. You should control things down to the point that you've got that control. Secondly, you're not going to have time to run out there and do that. And you're probably going to be facing somebody who's better armed than you are, i.e. they have some form of a long gun. You know, a .22 rifle down a hallway, down a 100-yard hallway, is going to give somebody an advantage over a 9mm at the other end. You have to be trained and practiced to be able to take out the threat. And James McGarvey, longtime friend of mine, founder of the Church Safety Guys, he made a comment one time that I've never forgotten, and I love this, and I use this when I talk to people about church safety, because he and I were talking about how far we shoot. And he said, you know, I've gone to my church and I've stood and measured the distance from like the back left corner to the front right, or however, diagonally across my sanctuary to determine what the longest shot would be. And I've been to a sanctuary at his church, and it's not a little church, it's not a little sanctuary. You need to be able to take a shot diagonally the greatest distance across your church. You need to train under pressure. You need to train under stress. You need to train moving and shooting, because standing calmly at 21 feet against a paper target that is not trying to kill you is not a test of your skill sets. You've got to test those under pressure. I talked to a businessman recently that found out I chaplain. One of my cops works for him part-time. He's a good dude. I invited him to my church, good Christian dude. He's currently looking for a church. And he said, I've learned a lot and I've trained a lot, but I really want to train under pressure because I really want to know, do I actually know it? And am I going to be able to use it when it matters? You've got to take it and pressure test your training. So again, you may have to step over a loved one or a stranger that's dying to prevent more people from dying, and you'll have to live with that. You need to be, and it's easy to think, oh, I could just take a life. If I had to, I could just take a life. You need to be prepared for that, and you need to understand that you're probably going to need counseling once it's over. I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever, based on my training and experience and the circumstances that I've been in, that if I was forced to, that I could stop a threat by ending their life. I don't want to do it. I never want to have to do it. But I'm also not so foolhardy to think that there would not be deep, emotional, long-lasting collateral damage that would stay with me for years, that I would need a battle buddy, that I would need somebody to visit with, that I would need counseling. And Stephen Williford will tell you he got counseling, and he literally, some of the best counseling he could get in the entire state of Texas. And that has helped him to put a perspective around something. Please understand, counseling allows us to define a thing, to understand what it is, the shape, the length, the breadth of the thing that we're dealing with, and to get a perspective on it. Because if we don't get a perspective on something that traumatic, whether we're at a situation and there was nothing we could do and the tornado blew through and it really hurt a bunch of people, or it was an active shooter, or it was a fire, it was a gas leak, it was a car accident, whatever that severe trauma was in our life, we were molested as a kid, whatever that is, if we can't get a perspective on it, it will destroy us. It really will. And that's one of the biggest things I see as a civilian police chaplain, is helping the men and women, especially the men. I primarily work with men. It's a male-dominated environment for a lot of reasons. You've got to be able to find perspective and own something and understand that this happened to me, but it will not define me. And I do not believe, outside of good counseling, and as a evangelical Christian, a firm believer in God, a firm believer that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, I do not believe you can find that outside of a walk with Christ. And so do not deceive yourself into believing that you're going to go in like Rambo. And I've been in force-on-force training, which I've not taken nearly as much force-on-force training as I would like to. But I've been in force-on-force training where in those moments I've seen people fold or panic or come out of it with flying colors, but say, I always thought I was going to go in like Rambo, John Wick, Audie Murphy, Dirty Harry, until I was hearing those airsoft rounds ping off the door frame, and I was realizing this is going to hurt. And I was realizing this ain't got nothing on what a bullet's going to do to me. And please understand, I want to go way back to something I said earlier. John Correa talks about having being spiritually fit, practicing spiritual fitness, being right with God. You're going to hesitate before going into the fight if you're not right with God. And you also can't have things left unsaid. So I don't need to stop and send a message to my wife that says I love you. She's just inside that house. She knows. Beyond the shadow of a doubt, she knows that I love her. Now, she wants me to come home, very much so. But if I don't, she knows that I'm with God, and she knows that we left nothing on the table, that I love her with all of my heart, and she loves me with all of her heart. You can't leave things like that on the table, because you will hesitate when it matters. Trust me. I had too many conversations in that regard. You need to be prepared for the fact that you'll probably know the shooter. If you're a school resource officer, if you're working in a church, if you're a teacher in a church, if you're a teacher in a school, odds are, even in workplace violence, you're probably going to know the threat. You're probably going to know the shooter, the person with the knife, the active killer. You're probably going to know them. And please understand, in some of these circumstances, you may have to end the life in order to stop the threat, not only of someone you know, but possibly somebody of the opposite gender. It's very difficult for a man to kill a woman. And something majorly has to break inside of a man to calmly and coolly just shoot a woman. That said, you may have to do so, or the threat may be a child. And that is a terrible situation. I have literally been in situations where I've seen officers have to talk a teenager out of doing something really, really not smart that would have ended up in suicide by cop. And you need to be prepared for the fact that that could happen. Back to what Colonel Jeff Cooper said, you need to be like, oh, I thought this might happen, and I've got a plan for that. I don't mean become paranoid. I don't mean freak yourself out. But I will tell you that I have been in multiple life and death scenarios, in which case I knew it was myself or the other person. And I will tell you, I called my 3 favorite instructors that have had the most impact on my life as a firearms instructors. They put me under stress. They trained me under stress. And I called them after the second incident and I said, hey, I've got to thank you because the things that you taught me saved my life. Because in that moment, I knew because of my training where I was going to put the rounds. I knew because of my training I was not going to miss. I knew because I had trained under stress. I was actually under less stress in a moment where somebody was trying to kill me and I had to draw on them, and they decided very much that they wanted to stay alive. I knew in that moment, I was actually under less stress in that moment that I had been under training with my instructor. Booyah. You can actually buy that because you can go pay for that instruction, but it's priceless in the moment. You cannot put a price on that. And I'm going to tell you, here's the other thing. If you know anything about me, you know that I just beat the drum. I beat it like a dead horse of train, 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 train. You will never find yourself in a life or death circumstance, in a situation where you go, gee, I wish we hadn't trained this much for this. You will never find yourself in that situation. And because I will literally tell you, when I have been in those situations alongside officers protecting someone, whatever that looked like, the Lord has opened my eyes to those situations, and I've realized, man, the training that I have received has prepared me for this, and I want more. You can't stop and go, time out, sorry, I need to go to the gym, need to get some cardio on, need to get some fitness, need to get some hand-to-hand skills, need to train in some de-escalation skills. Go to my buddy John Riley with wow, John, I just went blank, with Gentle Response. Holy cow, I can't believe I just went blank on that. And go to John Riley with Gentle Response and learn from him. And go to Alvin Bone with Tri-Point Tactical. Go to Matt Combs with Shield Force International. They're very good friends of mine. They're very solid. Find an instructor and train. Find a quality instructor and train. You can never train too much for something that can get you killed. And in that moment, those skill sets will protect you. You need to be able to function under a great deal of stress and function competently. And then we need to pray. We need to pray that that day never comes. And if it does come, we need to be able to go, okay, Lord God, give me the strength. I'm going in. Help me to perform past my abilities. Help me to be equal to this challenge, and help me to do only what is required to stop this threat. So anyway, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you. Remember that the day of the wolf could come. And if your heart is the heart of the sheepdog, you need to be prepared. God bless. If you enjoyed this microsode, check out the video and audio versions of the Let's Talk Church Safety and Security podcast.